guys, it's Sayback here. Welcome back to my podcast. Today I'm going to be continuing the fourth book in the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So, let's go right back to Hogwarts. So, Harry, Ron and Hermione and practically the rest of Hogwarts were in the Great Hall, and they saw this poster which said, you didn't guess it probably, it said that the Triwizard tournament was going to be held at Hogwarts. Now, of course, Harry and Ron had no idea what the Triwizard tournament was, and Hermione only knew a little bit about it. But on the poster, it said that the two schools, Beauxbatons and Durmstrangs, were going to come to Hogwarts and all their students with them to compete in the Triwizard tournament, and that they were going to stay here until the tournament was over. Of course, Harry, Ron and Hermione asked Fred and George what the tournament was, and they told them all about it. The tournament's full of dangerous tasks which 3 competitors have to complete, one from each school. Apparently, though, there's this one rule that everyone who competes in the tournament must have a wand on them at all times. I mean, you can't have anything else. Like, what about the stinking bombs we've made, right, George? That's right, Fred, they said. In the same time, of course, because, they're twins, and that's practically how they talk all the time. So now Harry, Ron and Hermione knew exactly what was going to happen in just a few days. This was really, really exciting. And Ron and Harry started to wonder, maybe they would even try to participate in the tournament too. The next few days passed without much coincidence. They had a Transfigurations lesson with Professor McGonagall and a Charms lesson with Professor Flitwick. Then came the big day, the day that the students from Beauxbatons and, of course, Durmstrangs were going to come to Hogwarts. Of course, though, the 3 champions, one from each school, had not been chosen yet. And this was just when the 2 other schools were starting to come to Hogwarts. Professor Dumbledore, of course, was very proud about being the headmaster who was chosen to host this event. And, of course, he knew the other 2 headmasters very well as well. Then the day had come, and everyone was outside. Excuse me, Dumbledore said, pushing through the massive crowd. And finally he got to the front just in time. Harry, Ron and Hermione were looking all around. Do you think they'd come by the train? Ron said. Hermione said, of course not. The train's not going to fit 2 whole schools. Maybe they'll come in separate ones, Harry said. And Hermione replied, with a stiff look on her face, as if she were trying to say, do you really need me to repeat everything twice? Then Ron got the idea of them coming on brooms, and almost half of the school started looking into the starry sky. Then Harry thought, or maybe they'll be coming from the lake. And just as he said that, everyone's eyes turned to the lake. Then, suddenly, they heard a loud noise in the air, and when they looked up, there was a large carriage which was, driven by 5 horses, and it was massive, definitely enough to fit a whole school, if you can imagine that is. And everyone in Hogwarts started clapping amazingly as the students of Beauxbatons landed. Dumbledore rushed over to the carriage and helped out a ginormous lady. Hello, Madame Maxime, he said. Madame Maxime was the principal of Beauxbatons School for Girls. Everyone there was stunning and amazing. And they had a French accent since, they were from France. Beauxbatons is the French wizarding school, and if you didn't know, Durmstrang is the Bulgarian one. So, then the rest of the school, Hogwarts School, and of course Beauxbatons, all entered the Hogwarts castle. Once everyone from Beauxbatons was inside, a lot of students gathered outside, including Harry, Hermione and Ron, and then the rest of the school joined them as well. Some students from Beauxbatons were also wondering how would the students from Durmstrang's be coming, even Madame Maxime. And then there they came, just like Harry had said, on the lake. There was a large silhouette of a dark black ship, and inside it were the students of Durmstrang. It had a Bulgarian flag on top, and then out came a stern, tall man, about the height of Dumbledore. He shook his hand firmly, Dumbledore's hand. He was the headmaster of Durmstrang's, and that was Igor Karkaroff. Then the rest of the students came outside, and right in the middle was Victor Crumb. It's Crumb, yelled Ron. Oh my God, I didn't know he was that. I knew he was young, but I didn't know he was that young to still be learning. Harry, it's Crumb, the amazing Quidditch player. Oh, he's just a Quidditch player, Hermione said. And that did not make Ron happy. Just a Quidditch player? Well, you're not very fond of the sport anyways. Of course you would just think that. Crumb's not just a Quidditch player. He's a role model. He's amazing. Well, marry him then if you want to, Fred and George said, appearing from the crowd. Then the students of Durmstrang's and Beauxbatons were held with an amazing announcement from Dumbledore. He greeted them all with a warm look on his face and said that he was going to be taking out the casket soon. Also, I may have forgotten to mention this, but before, of course, Dumbledore's great speech, Ron and Harry saw that there were 4 chairs, even though only 2 new people were there. And I mean on the teachers' tables. Of course, there were a lot more than 2 new people, but there were only 2 new teachers. But Ludo Bagman and Barty Crouch were also joining, because Ludo Bagman was indeed the sports director for Wizarding, and then Barty Crouch Sr., he was also something in the sports department, and you might remember him from the Quidditch World Cup that Harry, Ron and Hermione had gone to. He was the one who called Percy something, and that was really embarrassing, but we don't want to embarrass him right now. So basically, Barty Crouch Sr. was Percy, not Jackson, Weasley's boss. And of course, Percy is that snot-nosed, just terrible guy who only cares about his job and nothing about his family. But less about him and more about Dumbledore's speech now. Dumbledore gave a speech welcoming everyone in the school, and then the whole school even sang the Hogwarts song. Hogwarts, Hogwarts, Hogwarty, Hogwarts, teach us something, please. And once the song was over, the whole school roared in applause. Then Dumbledore told everyone about the Triwizard tournament. He said that the people who can enter the Triwizard tournament have to be over 17 years old because of an age restriction set by the Ministry of Magic. Then Fred and George were furious and said, "That's rubbish. That's completely mental." Because, of course, they weren't in their last year of Hogwarts yet, which is when they turned 17. And this meant that they could not participate in the tournament, which, of course, they really wanted to do. Then Professor Dumbledore said that since the tournament is extremely dangerous, these protocols have to be set. So before I bring out the casket, warm welcome to Durmstrang's and Beauxbatons. And the whole great hall roared in applause again. Then he brought out the casket, which of course you'll be wondering, why would he bring out a casket? I mean, did someone die or something? But no, the casket was actually holding a goblet, the Goblet of Fire. The Goblet of Fire was basically what you would enter your name into, but there would be an age line around the goblet so that people who aren't of age to join the tournament don't do so. A few days later, A girl named Angelina Johnson, who was on Harry's Quidditch team, put her name into the goblet. And then so did Cedric Diggory. They were both, of course, in their last year at Hogwarts. Of course, Oliver Wood, who would totally have done it, had already left Hogwarts last year in Harry's 3rd year. Hermione said, "Oh, imagine Cedric Diggory as champion. That would just be wonderful." And then Ron said, "Oh, you only like him because he looks good. Girls are just so weird these days." Hermione was really offended by that and said, "Not all girls only like people because they look good. I mean, you saw yourself around the girls, or Velas, as I should say, at the Quidditch World Cup. You were drooling over them. And besides, Diggory is a good competitor." Of course, Hermione went on and on about all the embarrassing things Ron had done at the, Quidditch World Cup. And she would not stop until Ron had actually apologized. Then, a few days later, it was time to see who the champions were. The first one is the champion from Beauxbatons, and it is... Then he took out a name from the Goblet of Fire, and it said, or as I should say, let Dumbledore say it, "Fleur Delacour," he shouted, and all of the girls at Durmstrang started patting Fleur's back and shaking her hand. She then went out to the front like Dumbledore had told her to. Then he took out another paper, and the champion from Durmstrang's, he said, "Victor Crumb." The whole school roared in applause, for I think now is the 5th time I've said this. Even Ron, and he was probably one of the happiest ones, because I think we all know how much he loves Victor Crumb. Then, the last one was Cedric Diggory from Hogwarts. Like Hermione had said, everyone applauded and pat Cedric's back, especially the boys that he was friends with, and even his girlfriend Cho Chang. And then the 3 champions headed to the front. But wait. Then another paper blasted out of the Goblet of Fire. Dumbledore took the paper and read Harry Potter silently. "Harry Potter," he yelled, but still calm, not like in the movies where he was furious and had just ruined everything. Well, not to spoil the movies. But then he called Harry to the front. "Go on, Harry," said Hermione. And Ron looked at Harry like he had committed a crime. Because, well, the age line. How did Harry even enter with the age line in place? He was 3 years younger than he was supposed to be if he even wanted to try to enter the Triwizard tournament. So how in the world did he accomplish that? And why didn't he tell Ron in the first place? Harry was extremely confused, but he went to the front, and then Dumbledore took him and the 3 other champions to a separate room and talked to them. Barty Crouch Jr., first Karkaroff was the one to speak. He said that, of course, this little boy can't compete. I mean, I'd leave with my champion as much as have him compete with this little boy. I mean, it would be no fair. Of course, Harrycroft didn't know the amazing things Harry Potter had done, because he lived all the way in Bulgaria, which is, I think, quite far away from London or Wales, right? Then Fleur Delacour, who is a champion from Beauxbatons, said, "This is unacceptable. I mean, you can't actually do this. It is too dangerous for him." Of course, in a French accent, but I can't really accomplish that. Then Severus Snape said, "Of course Potter can't compete. I mean, it's impossible. Besides, he's way too young." Barty Crouch Jr., who actually knew all the rules, like Dumbledore, said, "Dumbledore, you know the rules. His name came out of the Goblet of Fire. That means that he was chosen. That means that he has to compete. No matter what, Potter will have to compete." And Dumbledore was really confused because this was a deathly tournament, and he was scared for Harry because he cared about him so much. But, of course, in the end, it was decided that Harry would have to compete in the tournament. When he got back to the Grey Hall and Dumbledore explained everything, Ron looked at him with a mad look on his face. "Why didn't you at least tell me?" he said. Harry said, "You know I didn't put my name in the Goblet of Fire. How could I have?" And this started the feud between Harry and Ron. The next day, they were furious with each other because, of course, Harry didn't put his name in the Goblet of Fire, but Ron thinks he did, and he didn't even tell his own best friend. And, of course, Hermione, like always, is stuck in the middle of this. Then, well, it was the next day, and it was the weighing of the wands. Rita Skeeter, a snot-nosed reporter who always gets in the middle of everybody's business, was there, and she was going to ask questions to everyone. And so was Garrick Ollivander, who owned the shop where Harry got his first wand. He was going to weigh the wands and make sure that they work perfectly before the tournament, so that they work perfectly and they don't face any problems while they're in death-defying tasks. Rita Skeeter was like, "Oh, the little pretty girl from the French country, the famous Cedric Diggory, the handsome one," and she stroked his chin like his mother. And then we can't forget the amazing Quidditch player Victor Crumb. Oh, and of course, definitely, the famous Harry Potter, the one who defeated Lord Voldemort himself. Of course, Harry hated this type of attention, and he would never get used to it because, it's not his fault he didn't die from that one curse that night. It was all his brother's. And that was great, of course, that Harry's still alive, but of course, all the attention always goes to him when he's climbing the stairs or doing a spell in Transfiguration class. And Harry hated that all the time. After the weighing of the wands, it was finally time for the people, champions, as we would call them, to find out that they were going to be doing 3 tasks, and each task would get harder. The one who does the task the best will have an advantage in the 3rd task, and in the 3rd task, whoever wins gets the trophy, or, as I should say, the Triwizard tournament trophy. And, of course, Harry wasn't so focused on winning, more about trying, succeeding in trying, and surviving. So, of course, he did have to compete in all the tasks now because he was chosen by the Goblet of Fire. And when Ollivander saw that he was chosen, he was quite surprised. "Oh, Harry," he said, "it feels like just yesterday when you came to my shop to get a wand." It wasn't, but it was a lot earlier than when the rest of the champions had gotten their wands, which was probably 7 or 8 years ago. 6 or 7 years ago. And then, Ron and Harry obviously weren't talking to each other. So Ron refused to even speak to Harry. Hermione, of course, was still talking to him, and she said that they should go to the 3 broomsticks to get a cup of butterbeer together. Harry saw Ron with Fred, George, and Seamus over there, and he tried really hard not to just poke the back of Ron's head. But he succeeded in that, and he sat down with Hermione on a table and drank a cup of butterbeer together. Then it was time to meet Hagrid. Of course, they did have a lesson with Hagrid, as I mentioned in my last podcast, but this time they had a better conversation. Hagrid had a rose in his pocket, and he was taking Harry into the Forbidden Forest. Of course, Hermione wasn't there, and Harry was just wearing his invisibility cloak so that no one would see him. Hagrid was going to meet Madame Maxime, who he thought was a half giant, just like he was. And he wanted to even ask her out. That was what the flower was for. But, of course, he didn't tell Harry that, or else things would have gotten weird. So, what's the flower for? Asked Harry, since he didn't know what it was for. Oh, nothing, said Hagrid, brushing it off slightly. Then, when Harry came to the, the Forbidden Forest where Hagrid was going to meet Madame Maxime, he saw the first task. It was dragons. There were 4 or 5 dragons over there, tamed by none other than Charlie Weasley, Ron's older brother. This is what Charlie was talking about. Remember when Charlie said at the train station when dropping off the 4 of the kids, 4 of the kids since Percy just left, when dropping off 4 of the kids, he said that he would like to stay and watch sometime. What he wanted to stay and watch? The Triwizard tournament. How could he stay and watch? Well, he was going to be there for the, dragon taming part. So now Harry knew what the first task was. And when he was back at Hogwarts from the Forbidden Forest, the first person he told, of course, was Hermione. Hermione said, "Isn't this a bit cheating? Because, no one else knows." Then Harry said, "Well, how about we change that?" Then he walked over to Cedric Diggory, who was also standing on the bridge nearby, and he said, "Cedric, the first task." "Yes, Harry," Cedric said. "The first task, it's dragons," Harry whispered to him so that no one else would hear him. Cedric's eyes widened, and he muttered, "Thanks a lot. I was so worried about it, but I'll get some practice in, thanks." And, of course, now Harry wasn't the only one who knew, and technically, in Hermione's eyes, this wasn't cheating anymore. So then, Harry and Hermione, they thought about what to do to, fight off the dragon. One day, Harry talked with Moody, and Moody said that you should use your own talents against it. Harry said his only talents are Quidditch. And Moody said, "Well, then why don't you just fly around it? You should be a bloody good flyer if you're on the Quidditch team, if you were accepted on the Quidditch team when you were just 11 years old." Harry said, "I suppose so, but I'm not allowed to have a broom with me, only a wand." "Well, have you ever heard of Accio?" said Moody, "the summoning charm." Then, when Harry left Moody's office, he went to Hermione immediately and said, "Hermione, I know you know this for sure, but you have to teach me the Accio charm. It's going to help me in, the task. Because if I can summon my broom, then that would mean that I could technically fight off the dragon." So then Hermione and Harry, practiced Accio a lot. And then one day Harry said, "Wait, but my broom is going to be so far away, and these objects that we're practicing the summoning charm on are right here in this room, but the broom is going to be in the castle while we're on the castle grounds." Hermione said that the Accio charm works good either way, though. And then came the day for, the first task. Harry got the Hungarian Horntail, the most dangerous one of them all. And he fought it off brilliantly, and he got the golden egg that he was supposed to get. The other champions had different ideas. Cedric Diggory morphed a stick into a dog so that his dragon would want to chase the stick around instead of Cedric, and he carefully got the egg. Of course, though, since I'm retelling the story in the books, I just want to make it clear, the whole scene in the movies with the dragon going loose on ground, which is extremely dangerous, and of course, Harry almost dying in the first task, never happened in the books. So then, Harry retrieved the egg and had no idea what to do with it. So then, Ron walked up to Harry and he wanted to make a truce with him. "Lucky you came around," Harry said. "I told you, I didn't put my name in the Goblet of Fire, and I can say it as many times as you want." "How about 100 then?" Ron said, and Harry laughed. They both walked into the castle grounds, and soon Hermione joined them. She was extremely joyous that Harry had survived and had even gotten the golden egg. Then in the common room, Harry said, "Who wants to see me open this egg, huh?" And everyone wanted to. Then when he opened the egg, a deafening screech came out, which was too bad to hear. And everyone in the common room covered their ears, and it was just way too loud. The next few days, Hermione found out that, well, of course she already found this out, but she went more into depth about the, house elf thing and how Dobby and Winky actually work in Hogwarts. They make the food for them. This is just outrageous. She put out socks for all of the house elves when they were cleaning the dorms, and she found them all disappear day after day. But then she soon found out that it was Dobby who was taking all the socks. What a selfish little house elf. But to be fair, he had no clothes for 5 years? And he was just freed by Harry in the second book 2 years ago. Then there was another task, but this isn't the second task. This is a task which is not exactly a task, but it is a task to Harry and Ron, of course. It was the Yule Ball. And the Yule Ball was basically a ball for Christmas time, which always happened in the Triwizard tournament. There was a championship dance, and Ron had actually been mailed. Well, not mailed, actually. I'm pretty sure I said this in my last podcast, or maybe the one before that. But before everyone came to Hogwarts, of course, we saw Ron's ugly robes. And Ron obviously hated them and was so embarrassed having to wear them at the Yule Ball in front of the whole school. What was even harder was finding a date to the Yule Ball. Harry at first thought of asking Cho Chang, a girl who he had a crush on for a really long time. But when he did ask her, she said that she was already going with someone else and that she was extremely sorry. Of course, this left Harry devastated. But when he was back in his common room, a few minutes later came in someone who was even more devastated and heartbroken. It was Ron. Ron was just walking through the grounds of Hogwarts when he saw Fleur Delacour, one of the Triwizard champions. I know that. And he just asked her out because, without even knowing. It just blurted out of his mouth. And then, when she said, no, then Ron was so embarrassed that he cried his way up the stairs to the Gryffindor common room. Ginny and Hermione were comforting him, but that didn't stop him from being heartbroken from being rejected so sadly by Fleur Delacour. Then the Yule Ball came around, and of course, Harry and Ron were forced to just choose someone random in Gryffindor common room who had no date, and that were the Patil twins. Of course, not both of the Patil twins were in Gryffindor. Parvati Patil was the Gryffindor, and Padma was in Ravenclaw. But in the movies, they completely changed that. Well, anyways, Harry ended up going with Parvati, and Ron ended up going with Padma. He said that he wanted to ask Hermione, but she said that she already had a date. Ron said that she was probably crying the mickey out of her in her room on the day of the dance because she definitely didn't have a date and she just didn't want to go with Ron. Hope you kept up with that. Then the day of the Yule Ball came and the championship dance was on. Basically, each champion had a date. Harry was with Parvati, as I said. Cho was actually with Cedric, who was the other champion. And Roger Davies, who was the Ravenclaw seeker in Gryffindor, was with Fleur Delacour. And guess who was with Victor Crumb? Hermione Jean Granger. So she did have a date after all. And Victor was the one who asked her, not Hermione. And she had said yes. Of course, though, Harry and Ron, well, just Ron, had completely ruined the whole dance for Hermione because Ron said that she was fraternizing with the enemy. And then Hermione said, oh really? I thought that this dance was to, strengthen bonds with the other school students. And that's just what I'm doing. Besides, don't you remember who was completely down-handed obsessed with Victor Crumb when he first came to Hogwarts? Then Ron said, well, that was before he was against Harry in the Triwizard tournament. I mean, is he a friend or not? Hermione looked at Harry with an extremely stern look. And of course, Harry did not want to be in the middle of this. So he just said, well, I've got to go and get a cup of water, so I'll be right back. Hermione ended up crying at the end and she yelled at Ron so much. She said, well, next time if there's a ball, pluck up the courage and ask me before someone else does, and not as a last resort. Ron, of course, was terrified of Hermione, but, of course, he was still extremely mad at her for really no reason. I guess he was just mad that she had more fun at the Yule Ball than he did, because he and Padma did not even dance, and Padma ended up going with someone else. And so did Parvati, because Harry didn't dance at all either. He just danced for the championship dance at the start. So the Yule Ball was a complete disaster, because there's more that was disastrous. Well, Hagrid had actually asked Madame Maxime if she was a half giant and which of his mother or father was the giant. And Madame Maxime was furious and said that she was just tall. That's not true, because she was taller than Hagrid. So someone had to be a giant. But of course, she, I think, didn't admit that. And Hagrid was also devastated. So the Yule Ball was a disaster for everyone, including Harry, Hermione, Ron, and Hagrid. But Neville actually had quite a lot of fun. He went with Ginny to the ball, and he danced there all night with her, even when she almost fell asleep. Then came Rita Skeeter's scoop. She wrote on the Daily Prophet that Hagrid was a half giant, which is true, but no one else except Harry, Ron, and Hermione knew that. And Draco started making fun of Harry and teasing him because of what Rita Skeeter had written. And of course he believed that. But pretty soon later, not everyone would be so believing about everything she's been writing, all her lies, and... Okay, I have to calm down a little, because I've said way too much already, and I'll be continuing this book in another podcast. So now, if you all don't mind, I'll be ending this podcast here, and I hope you have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe to my podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and I hope you've enjoyed. That's it from me. I'll see you next time.